Hello, and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to be painting some loose watercolor orchids. I have an orchid here so you can see there's about 5 petals, and there's these 2 little petals on the inside, and then this almost like tongue-like petal on the bottom. And inside the flower there's this little yellow sort of dot. You can see it better here. So there's these 2 yellow things and then a little protruding piece from the top. So we're going to start by wetting our palette. I always do that. And then I'm sort of mapping where I'm going to paint my flower. You can sketch it out first. And then I'm just going to create this triangle. I'm using a dark purple, but there's so many different colors you can use with orchids. And then I'm blotting my brush, filling it with water, and I'm pulling from that triangle. So on the side here, I'm going to do the same thing. And I found this to be the easiest way. These are going to be the back 3 petals. So I'm pulling that water from the triangle. And the top might be a little bit darker. That's fine. You could always add more water or try to pick up some paint with your dry brush. But we're just going to keep doing this type of movement. So here I'm doing another triangle. And it's pretty saturated. I'm using just a darker purple. And I'm using a real brush. This is a round brush and it had a little yellow left over in it, but that's fine. You saw that I could just pick it up. And I'm just repeating this same movement. And I actually really like the variation in this. I love the beautiful bleeds of all different colors. And I'm just going to repeat this going down, sort of like if there's a stem there. Again, if it's easier for you to sketch it out with pencil, absolutely do that. Just if you don't want the pencil to be seen through, make sure that you just erase it and leave a very light outline. But I think I'm gonna do this one. I'm just gonna keep it in the same colors. I did a little bit of a mistake there, but that's fine because I can pick that up, and actually I'm going to go over that after with another petal. Now we're gonna create that little tongue-like petal on the bottom, and I'm just doing these quick sort of longer shapes. I don't know what you'd call this shape, but I'm just pulling it out. And again, this is just the top layer. So once that's dried a little, I let it dry a little bit in between. I'm going to do a little bit of a darker petal so that it appears to be over top, and we're just going to repeat that. And I'm just going to sort of add in wherever I think needs a little bit more contrast. See how that petal looks like it's on top of that back petal? And it's fine if it's a little bit see-through. You can always go in after and create more layers. And I'm just gonna let that dry as it is and see how that turns out. But I'm just gonna keep doing this, and I'm sort of mixing different shades of purple. You don't need to use a specific shade. You can use whatever colors that you'd like, or whatever orchid that you have in front of you. You can try to mimic those colors. And again, these are not like exact, these are more of a loose style. And that's usually how I like to paint. I do have another tutorial that's a little bit more in depth that I will pin here, and we can definitely practice with that. Just going in and fixing little shapes before it dries. And I'm gonna just let that dry, and I'm gonna go on to add some yellow in the centers and just drop that in while it's a little damp. And as that fully dries, I will start creating some buds. So I'm using a little bit of a sap green color, and I'm pulling out some buds, and then I'm gonna connect where the stem is going to be in my head. And these sort of protrude out a little more. See, like that stem comes out, and from there, we can create another flower on that stem, but they're not on the stem. There's a little stem and then it comes out. Now I'm gonna create the big leaves that they have, and I'm gonna put a pot in here, but I'm doing the leaves first. They sort of hang over the pot. As that dries, I'm gonna go in and create some little buds on these that are sticking out. These can be green or colored. Now, I was talking about that side angle. You can sort of see that the petals, you can't really see the flower itself, and these are the petals on the top. And then we're gonna just add that coming from the stem, and then it's not gonna be perfect. This is the little tongue that sticks out, And then we're just gonna add in another little dot here in the front, and that's really the gist of it. We're not gonna go too crazy with details, and it doesn't need to look exactly. It's just sort of a representation of the flower when we're doing this loose style. And I'm so sorry, but I didn't realize that my camera cut this off, and I only filmed from one angle. I did not film from up top. So I'm just lightly sketching in a pot, very light and loose. I'm using a gray tone. You can use a gray right from a palette, or you can mix up your own gray. My favorite mixture of gray is just a little bit of ultramarine blue mixed with a tiny bit of orange and lots of water, and you're gonna get a beautiful gray. You can add a little purple to that if you'd like. Any tone that you want. You can have fun mixing. But I'm just sketching it in. Again, it's not going for super realism. We're going for loose and fun and just represent the pot. So I'm adding in some darker shades just to make it look a little bit more realistic. Now I'm going to go in with a darker shade of purple, and I'm just going to sort of pull out those petals. And if you've made it this far and you're learning, I would love if you liked and subscribed. It just really does help me push out my videos so I can keep creating. And now if you notice, the petals on orchids have these little lines in them. Some of them don't, but this specific variation have these very light lines. I am pulling out that bottom part, and I'm adding in that little sort of triangle shape on the tip of that tongue that I keep calling it. There's just like a little triangle. It looks like a little tooth, almost like a snake tongue. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's how my brain perceives it. So we're just gonna keep doing that on each one, and I'm just using a darker purple, and then there's those little tiny petals that are in the inside of the flower that we saw. They sort of stick in and around that yellow, and I'm just gonna add those. They're little C shapes right underneath where that white spot is, where we tried to avoid when we were painting. So the inside of that triangle. We're just gonna make those C shapes and sort of carve out anything that we want to be more recognizable. And if you don't even have to do these details if you're fine with just leaving it. This is just an option. Like you can leave it as it was and keep going. I just like to add a little bit of detail. That's just my style, but not overly detailed. But for the sake of this video, I'm going to just keep on adding some lines. Some of them will be light purple. I think some will be yellow, maybe some light pink. Just have fun with it. And again, these are not perfect. It's just putting lines in. Just going with it. So I'm gonna use like a yellow ochre color here. I use a yellow ochre for the center of the flowers, mixed with a little bit of a warm yellow. But those light petals look so pretty with that yellow on it. Adding the yellow into the bottom flower, if you can slightly see it from the side. Just gonna keep carving out those little details. And in the beginning, I was using a water brush. You can use the water brush. It came with this kit that I have that I will link below in the description section. But I'm using a regular brush. It's a little bit easier to use. I do like to use the water brush though, I won't lie. It's pretty convenient. I'm adding some little dots in there. Those are on my orchids. There's tiny little dots. Some of them don't have it and some of them do, or they have them very light. I'm just going to define this one from the side. And I'm using a very light wash on this petal. Going back over it with a darker. I really don't know how it will turn out, so I'm kind of experimenting. That's what these are for me, just little loose experimentations. Just pulling that one forward. I'm gonna add some detail to my petals, just a line down the center, and then a little bit of a shadow underneath. Nothing crazy. They're pretty shiny. And then I'm gonna add a darker gray under this petal to create a shadow on that pot. Sort of blend that out with a little bit more water. Oh look, I realized that I was out of focus. I'm gonna add a little bit of a shadow to the bottom of the pot. And this might not be exactly realistic, but it just gives you the idea that the pot is sitting on a table. Adding some more shades to the outside. And then I'm gonna add a little bit, just because I love to, I'm gonna add some more buds. So it's coming off that stem and they're budding up. And I'm gonna leave these primarily green. I'm just making these little circles. And I think I'll add some bleed to this. Just a little drop of a little color in there. And it'll sort of do its own thing, create its own magic. Sometimes I just feel like I need something there. Then I'm going to use some white gouache. You don't have to do this part, but if you want that center to pop out, you can just add that little center right where that white little protruding thing is. I don't know the technical name. And you can leave it like this, or you can be a little bit ritzy like me, and we're going to use some sparkle pens. And I'm just going to go over some of these lines. Again, I'm experimenting here, we're having fun, so I kind of wanted to see how this looked. And this is a little bit more playful, but it's fun. So I'm just gonna add some pretty lines to this using some sparkle. And again, I will link these below in the description. These are so pigmented and pretty, but I don't know, will I do the whole thing? Definitely want to add some to the yellow here. Just look how pretty it is. I have a thing for sparkles. I love it. They make me happy. Adding just a little bit to the center, and you don't have to do this again. You can just leave it, but I just really wanted to play a little more. I'm gonna add a little bit more of a pinky purple to outline the petals. Just add a little bit of variation of shades. Look at how pretty. I can't help it. They're just so pretty. These would be really fun for kids too. Okay, I think that's my final touch. And yeah, that is my final product. Look how beautiful these are. They're just so easy. I really think I figured out a way to make these easy for you. So I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. And please like and subscribe if you want to see more tutorials. And let me know in the comments if there's anything in particular that you'd like to see me paint next. Have a good day, and I will see you next time.